Hi everyone, my name is Diane. I'm now bringing to you another one of our Here's What I'm Thinking About series. And today we're going to talk about well-being and resilience in leadership, which for goodness sakes, in the midst of pandemic and all the stuff that the last year has brought, it's a very timely topic. I want to preface it by saying I'm not an expert in mental health. There's all sorts of stuff written about well-being and wellness and the importance of resilience. And so what I want to encourage you to do is, if you are struggling with your own mental health or you have a concern about another colleague, loved one, please do reach out to the number of resources that are available when it comes to the Employee Assistance Program, Canadian Mental Health Association, and a whole variety of resources that are available in the community. We're going to talk about well-being, though, today. And well-being and wellness are two words that are thrown around a heck of a lot. And as always, I seek to find what the definition of these terms are so that we can at least all start with a common understanding. And one of the things I discovered is that research shows that a balance of the 7 dimensions of well-being is what leads to a sense of wellness. And I hadn't heard about the 7 dimensions of well-being before, but when I read this and researched it, it made complete sense to me. So the 7 dimensions include physical, intellectual, environmental, career, social, emotional, and spiritual health. And one of the really cool things about that is that they form an acronym, and that acronym is SPECIES. So I love the acronyms because it makes it way easier to discover the things that, or to remember, I should say, not discover, but remember long lists of things. So SPECIES. So let's just dive into, gosh, I hate that expression. Let's just look a little deeper into what each of those words mean. So physical well-being, regular physical activity, getting active, getting moving. Social well-being, or so the dimension of social in terms of well-being, is the ability to relate and connect to people. And the more we can do that, the more we have a sense of well-being. The intellectual dimension is about creative, stimulating activities, things that make your brain work, things that make you think. Next one is environment. That one actually surprises people a little bit, but that's the care and concern we have for our environment and what our relationship to the environment is. One of the things that's happened during COVID, for sure, is plenty of people have discovered the environment around them, the natural environment. And so feeling a sense of environmental well-being is equally as important. Career, feeling personal satisfaction with the work you're doing. And, that takes all shapes, sizes, and forms. But one of the dimensions of well-being is career and that personal satisfaction with work. The next one is emotional well-being. So that's the awareness and the acceptance of the feelings that we have. We do a lot of work in our leadership development series on emotional intelligence. And so the emotional part of well-being really pays attention to, as I say, the awareness and acceptance of feelings. And then the last one is spiritual well-being, or that dimension in positive well-being. And that is about meaning and purpose and what it actually, what your life purpose is, what your meaning, where is the meaning in life, and that sort of contemplation about you in the sense of something much bigger. So again, 7 dimensions: species, SPECIES, physical, social, intellectual, environmental, career, emotional, and spiritual. So why is well-being important? Well, heck of a question. But what we know is that when we are in a state of well-being, and when our teams are in a state of well-being, that we're better able to develop our potential, we're more productive, more creative, we can build positive relationships with others, we can better cope with stress and the challenges that life brings, and we can make meaningful contributions. And so I think in an exploration of well-being, it's important to consider those 7 different dimensions. It's not just about having a bubble bath. Although sometimes a bubble bath is a great thing to have, it's much broader than that. So when you think about the questions around that, what I would ask you is, what does well-being mean to you? And which of the 7 dimensions would you like to understand more about? And is there one that's more challenging for you? And is there one that comes really easily to you? Another question to contemplate is, how does your well-being impact your ability to lead others? And how has this been impacted over the past year? I think when we think about COVID, we somehow envision a perfect situation pre-COVID, and then COVID, and then going back to a perfect situation. And I think that, if you think about this, we left an imperfect world. We're in an imperfect world. Some might say a very imperfect world. And we're going back to an imperfect world. So thinking about how your well-being has been impacted by COVID, and how it is that you can bounce back, or you can focus on the things that are really important to your well-being, is important. And the last question is, how can you support your own well-being as well as the well-being of your team members? So oftentimes we know what our temperature is, we know where we're at, but we're less clear about where others on our team are. And sometimes we make assumptions about somebody being off, or somebody being difficult to get along with, or somebody really not being accountable, or whatever it might be. And so what I encourage you to do is to check in on their well-being. We have a duty to inquire about how people are doing, and that's just good leadership. Taking a temperature check on how your team is doing, checking in regularly, making sure that all is right in their world, and if all isn't right in their world, then providing the supports that can help things be better in their world. And sometimes, as I say, that's a mental health situation where there is further expertise required than that of a supervisor. So connected to well-being is resilience. And, it's like, how can some people deal with some circumstances better than other people? And when we think about many of the children and youth that we work with at Boys and Girls Clubs, I have always been in awe of the resilience that some of our children and youth have demonstrated over the years, and despite circumstances that are well beyond their control and in many cases incredibly difficult, that they've been able to draw on themselves and to figure out how it is that they're going to navigate through this world. And that to this day is just so remarkable. And so when I think about resilience, and I think about some of the stories that have been a part of our organizational fabric, I think, man, oh man, how does that apply then to leadership? So the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. And so there's a quote, there's a gazillion quotes out there, but this particular one says, your hardest times often lead to your greatest moments. Keep going. Tough situations build strong people in the end. And, I think in my personal experience, I would absolutely agree with that. Some of the most difficult situations that I know I had to deal with, our team had to deal with, is actually what made us stronger in the end. And it's actually what built our experience and made us more confident about the kinds of things that we were able to deal with. So there are a number of factors when it comes to resilience. I think what I'd like to talk about today are the 7 key skills of resilient people, and just explore that topic a little bit. So the first skill is that the skill of autonomy. So resilient leaders are autonomous, which means that we have control over ourselves and our actions. And it's a feeling of being empowered. It's a feeling of responsibility and control over the attitudes that you have, or the way in which you're conducting your work in your way. It's a genuineness, it's a control, it's autonomy. Resilient people have a realistic awareness of themselves. We call that self-awareness. You're in touch with your core purpose and your emotions, that you understand that you're not perfect and that you're living in an imperfect world. And so your actions are representative of that. The third thing is that resilient people are adaptable. They understand that it's not just black and white. They bend, they don't break. They live in ambiguity. And so learning how to do that is an important piece of resiliency. Resilient people are optimistic, glass half full. Change happens all the time, and having a positive outlook on life and on what's coming next is a real key to resiliency. Resilient people are pragmatic, which means they're practical. They have practical steps to resolve issues and problems. They're socially connected. Relationships matter, and they build strong and positive connections. And last but not least, resilient people demonstrate self-compassion. They're their own best friends, and give themselves a break. They're not expecting perfection. What they're expecting is that you get up every day and try your best. And if that doesn't work, then you get up the next day and try your best. Those are the skills of resilient people. And that's taken from an article called The 7 Key Skills of Resilient People. I want to finish just on the resilience of teams. So certainly during this course of COVID, we have had to really rely on the resilience of our teams and lead through all sorts of difficult stuff. And so the research and experience shows that there really are 4 different aspects to a resilient team. The first one is candor. So candor means honest, open dialogue and feedback. Speaking truth to each other, talking directly to the person who is on the team instead of talking to everybody else except for that person, in order to collectively identify and solve the challenges they face. Resilient teams are resourceful. So when faced with challenges and problems, and gosh knows there's been plenty of them, can your team pull together to build creative and effective solutions? The next one is compassion and empathy. And do your team members truly care about each other and share both success and failure? And the last one, number 4, is humility. Can your team ask for help and accept help from other team members? Resilient teams are ready, willing, and able to say, you know what, we need help on this situation. And they don't hide their struggles, but rather they lean into others in the organization or on the team to help with facing the challenges and the solutions. So some good articles out there. One is about 7 strategies to build a more resilient team. There's another one about 4 ways to improve the resiliency of your team. But I think the question I would leave you with is, how has your team demonstrated resilience over the past year? And what's been easiest for your team and what's been more difficult? And how can you focus, what can you focus on now to continue to develop your team's resilience? So just a snapshot of our session from today, which was about developing well-being and resilience in leadership. Thanks so much for listening. Hope that was helpful. Please feel free to reach out if you would like more resources or information about this topic. Bye-bye for now.